Jade Afterimage. Chapter 1, The Destruction of the Family, The Sudden Change of Fate. In the border area of the ancient Oriental country, there is a rumored young man who is as pure as jade. His name is Ji Sunjin. This young man was born in a family of famous generals. The Ji family has been guarding one side for generations, serving the country, even though he is peerless, but he is always silently low-key, elegant and humble. Ji Sunjin has been pampered by his parents since he was a child, and his jade-like face and snow-white skin have made him the Yao Qi in the world in the eyes of countless people. However, fate is always so impermanent. When he was only 10 years old, the Ji family was beheaded all over the house because of an unwarranted disaster, and the corpses were stacked on top of each other, and the blood flowed like a river. The Ji family is full of loyalty, and his father Ji Yanran, as a general, has been fighting horses all his life, but he was finally beheaded by the whole family because of a fabricated coup d'état. Ji Sunjin couldn't understand this sudden change. He still remembered that snowy night, when his family was slaughtered. His mother desperately hid him in the basement, leaving a way for him to survive. But no matter how careful she was, Ji Sunjin was eventually discovered. At a young age, he was forcibly captured by soldiers sent by the palace, ruthlessly dragged into the palace, and became a powerless eunuch. What's even more terrifying is that his body was cleansed and he can no longer be a man. What the hell are you trying to do? Ji Sunjin's eyes were full of horror and confusion, and the chains on his body were cuffed, making a sharp sound of metal rubbing. Shut up! A palace maid shouted, from now on, you will be a nameless slave in the palace, and you will obey orders. Ji Sunjin's heart was broken. His fate changed forever, and no matter how unwilling he was still submerged in this gorgeous and intriguing court. This is a reality that he does not want to face. Chapter 2, The Prince's Humiliation. The days Ji Sunjin spent in the palace were full of pain and humiliation. The palace people laughed at him mercilessly, always saying that he was a symbol of the fall of the Ji family, and mentioning his once jade-like face was all teasing and humiliating. Time has passed, and Ji Sunjin has grown up. Although his body is no longer complete, the pain in his heart has not gone away. However, what made him feel most unbearable was that the crown prince Xiao Chenexai, who he once thought was a high-ranking nobleman, was originally Ji Sunjin's classmate, but he often took the opportunity to humiliate him in the palace. Xiao Chenexai is a contradictory existence. Although the outside world knows that he is a high-ranking prince, dignified and intelligent, his inner inferiority complex and irritability are extremely deep. Ji Sunjin never understood why this young man who used to be at the same table with him in the school would look down on him so much, and even use him as a laughing stock. Ji Sunjin, you look really pitiful. Once, the crown prince suddenly smiled at the banquet. The former young master of the Ji family is now just a eunuch with no roots and no foundation. At that moment, Ji Sunjin's heart was like a knife, and his face was so red that he could barely bear it. His body, which used to be so beautiful, was changed overnight into something he couldn't even face. Every time he saw the prince's indifferent eyes, his heart would break. However, fate always seems to laugh at people. He did not collapse because of the prince's cold words, but under the arrangement of fate, the relationship between the two underwent amazing changes. Chapter 3, The Seduction of Taboos. One day, a power struggle in the palace made Xiao Chenexai further become the future ruler of the empire. He finally took control of the real power and began to direct the affairs of the palace as the crown prince. However, his heart still couldn't hide that deep shadow, that is, his strange feelings for Ji Sunjin. Whenever he saw Ji Sunjin's face that was still like jade, his mood was always calm. He tried to turn a blind eye to Ji Sunjin's body and even his existence, but those suppressed emotions always came out of his heart. One night, the prince ordered Ji Sunjin to serve in the palace, and he wanted to know what kind of emotions this former young master of the Ji family hid. When Ji Sunjin stood in front of the prince, his originally calm heartbeat began to accelerate, but he still couldn't help but keep quiet. Ji Sunjin, why are you still so quiet? The prince chuckled and approached him. You look like this, but you are more like the round jade ball back then. Ji Sunjin's face suddenly turned pale, and he whispered, Prince, don't say these words again. The prince stared down at him, and the undercurrent in his eyes surged, as if the long-suppressed emotions were suddenly released. Do you know that every time I look at you, I feel a little uneasy? Ji Sunjin subconsciously wanted to retreat, but the prince suddenly reached out and grabbed his wrist. Do you remember what happened to us? You will always remember what you look like, but I will never forget you. The prince's words were low, as if with unspeakable longing. Ji Sunjin's heart was beating faster and faster, and he knew that there was no turning back at this moment. The prince is no longer the indifferent teenager, but has put himself in endless desires. His hands slowly untied Ji Sunjin's clothes, and every inch of his body was exposed to this unquestionable moment. Don't. Ji Sunjin couldn't hold back her whispered cry anymore, don't. Don't look. The prince's voice was low and calm, like a gust of wind. Good boy doesn't cry. At that moment, Ji Sunjin only felt that all her inferiority complex and pain seemed to melt into this indescribable taboo. Perhaps, he never really understood this emotion, and the prince gave far more profound than any suffering he had experienced. Chapter 4, The Curse of Fate. When Ji Sunjin was finally forcibly violated by the crown prince, he felt extremely humiliated, but he couldn't resist. He knew that his destiny was never his. Neither in the family nor in this court, he never really had the power to choose. And the end of all this finally made him a victim of fate. All that the prince did to him, whether it was belittlement, humiliation, or fierce love, pushed him into an irreversible abyss. The interweaving of fate and fate led him to an inescapable path. However, this relationship also buried the deepest pain and struggle in Ji Sunjin's heart. Will he be able to get out of it all and regain control of his destiny, or will he be forever imprisoned by the past and become the plaything of fate? Chapter 5, The Entanglement of Emotions. Time is like an endless river, but it still can't wash away the pain in Ji Sunjin's heart. He knew that the relationship between himself and the crown prince was wrong. He could no longer give everything he had to the crown prince, both physically and mentally, and for him it was all a burden he could not bear. However, the crown prince Xiao Chenexai does not seem to intend to let Ji Sunjin go easily. Every time their eyes staggered, the indescribable persistence in the prince's eyes made Ji Sunjin unable to escape. He already knew that the prince's feelings for him were not limited to power and desire, but also had a deep affection. Ji Sunjin, when you appear in front of me again, do you know that you are no longer the young master of the Ji family back then? The prince's voice was low and calm, but with an irresistible attraction. There's no way for you to escape. Ji Sunjin's heart was beating violently. He didn't want to continue this relationship, but no matter how he struggled, he couldn't tear apart the traces left by the prince after all. Every time he confronted him, his heart was like 1,000 needles, painful and inescapable. He raised his head, his eyes full of confusion and helplessness. What the hell do you want me to do? I don't have anything left to give you. The prince stood in front of him, leaned over slightly, and whispered, You are wrong, Ji Sunjin. Everything you have has always belonged to me. Whether it's the scars on your body or your heart that no longer belongs to you, it's all I need. Ji Sunjin felt that her vision began to blur, and everything in front of her seemed to become unreal. He knew that he could no longer go back to his old life, and that he could no longer have a free future. His existence seems destined to be a tool for the crown prince to control, both physically and mentally. Chapter 6, The Determination to Rebel. However, this contradictory emotion did not completely knock Ji Sunjin down. In the dead of night, he still can't help but wonder if he can really only become a plaything in the hands of the prince, and whether he will never be able to break free from the shackles of all this. On a rainy night, Ji Sunjin finally made the most important decision in his life. I can't live like this anymore. He muttered to himself, a hint of determination flashing in his eyes. I'm not going to let this person continue to control me. Ji Sunjin began to secretly contact those forces in the palace who were dissatisfied with the prince, and secretly collected evidence, intending to expose the prince's various conspiracies and improper behaviors. He knew that such a plan was extremely dangerous, but he had no choice but to break it all so that he could truly take control of his own destiny. With those hands that were once caricatured as mutilated, he began to plan his own counterattack. He understood that this struggle was not only for himself, but also for the palace people who were as powerless as he was, for the souls who were lost in this cold palace. In this plan, Ji Sunjin and the prince gradually distanced themselves further. He is no longer the eunuch who has no ability to resist, but has become an undercurrent in the palace, a hidden danger that threatens the prince's rule. Chapter 7, The Truth Revealed. The plan was in full swing, and Ji Sunjin and those alliances in the palace gradually got closer to the truth. During a late-night operation, he managed to enter the prince's private study and found the secret letters and documents that could prove all the crimes committed by the prince. Ji Sunjin flipped through those documents, and each page was full of evidence that the prince had colluded with foreign forces, as well as the means by which he had secretly controlled the affairs of the palace. The truth of all this has finally surfaced. When Ji Sunjin held the evidence in his hands and was about to make it public, he did not feel relieved in his heart. On the contrary, he struggled in his heart. Although he has made up his mind to expose the prince's crimes, he still can't erase the intricate feelings in his heart for the prince. This emotion is like a double-edged sword, which makes him painful and makes him unable to get rid of it. At this moment, the prince suddenly appeared. His figure quietly appeared behind Ji Sunjin, and his tone was still cold. Do you think you can escape me? Ji Sunjin turned around and looked at the prince coldly, with endless anger and pain in his eyes. Why are you doing this to me? What kind of relationship is there between us? The prince was silent for a moment before he slowly spoke. The relationship between us has never been something you can understand. I've always been there for you, but you chose to run away. Ji Sunjin, no matter how you struggle, it's still mine after all. This sentence made Ji Sunjin feel dizzy. He didn't understand why the prince's feelings for him were always so full of contradictions and struggles. Perhaps, he always thought that he would be able to escape the control of the crown prince, but in the end, he found himself in the middle of it. Chapter 8: The Intertwining of Fates. In the end, Ji Sunjin made his final choice. He no longer fought against fate, nor did he run away from the prince's emotions. He knew that he was destined to be connected to the crown prince, and no matter how much he struggled, this relationship would be a part of his life. Perhaps, this is fate. Ji Sunjin said indifferently. There was both relief and indescribable sadness in his eyes. The prince walked up to him, stretched out his hand, and gently stroked his face. No matter how much you resist, I will always be there for you. The fates of the two are finally intertwined at this moment. No matter what the future holds, this love, full of pain and struggle, will always be deeply embedded in their lives.